I'm calling this video the expert's guide to the steep chutes at Ride Beham. They're the steepest thing we have in the state. Very similar to the steepest, scariest section at the beginning of Storyteller at Oak Mountain, and very similar to the steep rock rolls on Boulder Ridge. But they're a very different style of riding. And I was hoping that maybe this would help people who want to progress on them more safely. If you don't want to listen to the details, then just check out the description, and that'll give you the order of progression that I recommend for the end of 2025 and the beginning of 2026. If you want to pick up some tips, then listen on. I hope it's helpful. Hey, this is Lon with Single Track Skills, sporting my Fight Nerd MMA glasses. If you don't know what those are, check it out. I thought it would be a chuckle mountain bike instructor with broken glasses because he's had so many crashes. But hey, the goal for today is to give you some progression at Ride Beham so you don't have any crashes. What we're going to do is we're going to be on Peak 1. You access these double black trails by Upper Chiropractor. If you don't know where that is, just talk to the people here at the park and they'll guide you the right way. It's on Peak 1. You get on Upper Chiropractor and then you stay right and it will take you to all of these steep chutes. All of these steep chutes are double black. And the idea is that I am going to recommend a progression. The easier of the double black trails, progressing to the most difficult of the double black trails. But the reality is they're all double black, so they're all hard. It's just hard and more hard and more hard. You get the idea. You really don't have any business on any of these chutes if you haven't pretty much mastered my Ground Control 1 material. If you don't even know what I'm talking about, hit me up and I can get you some more information on my Ground Control 1 classes where we deal with body position, braking, terrain awareness, a lot of those things. You use nothing but Ground Control 1 techniques on these super steep chutes. So let's get up to the top and I'll give you, in my opinion, the easier ones to start off with and moving to the more difficult. Let's get it done. All right, I flipped the camera around, not to put you through the pain of looking at my face. We're at the front range, and just a couple tips before we even start talking about these trails. Whenever I'm riding these steep chutes, I usually do it after I spend time jumping out here at Ride Beham. So my tire pressure for jumping is at least 5 pounds greater in the front and rear of my tires. So what I'll do is I'll jump, and I have to have quite a bit of pressure in my tires, because if I don't, then I'll roll them when I'm landing and in the corners. So I'm pretty close to like 29 in the rear, 28 in the front with cush core for my body weight for jumping. And then I drop that down to 23 in the front, 24 in the rear for these steep chutes. So that's one thing you can do right off the bat to make sure that you have some good success. You'll get a lot more traction on these chutes that way. The other thing you can do is make sure you have good brand new tires on here. If you're gonna check off some new features on the, the tires make a huge difference. I've got right now, I have pretty much a worn out front tire, but a brand new rear. And I can't wait to get that. I should have replaced the front as well because the front's way more important than the rear. The last thing you can do to dress for success, so to speak, is go over to Peak 2 and hit the chutes on the cross-country trail over there, Never Land. I have a video of those chutes in order, I believe somewhere, so if you're interested in that, hit me up and I'll see if I can find it. But yeah, those chutes on the cross-country side are every bit as steep, but usually the traction is better over there because the soil holds its moisture better. So I would definitely recommend checking those off first before you come over here. A lot of times when I ride these chutes on Peak 1 or Peak 2, first I go over there and check off the cross-country chutes just to kind of make sure my bike's working and everything. And you can see the parking lot down there. It's about 300 feet of elevation. And what I do is I loop these and I make a long cross-country ride. Wink, wink, cross-country. Basically, I fly up here on the e-bike, get my heart rate up as high as possible, and then I drop the mode of the e-bike and down to not quite as fast because I don't want it to get away from me on the chutes. And then I try to ride every one of these chutes, or almost every one of them. And by the time I get done with that, I've gotten a really good fitness and strength to work out. So what I promised you we're gonna start off with the progression. Corner pocket is probably the easiest chutes. How about this? How about if I separate these in 3 groupings? The easiest of the double black, the more difficult of the double black, and then the last category will be the very most difficult of the double black. And the reason why I say that is because everyone has different skill sets, and some people are better at cornering, other people are better at just keeping something straight and it being even steeper. So it's all gonna be subjective to what your skills are. The first one would be corner pocket. And to get to corner pocket, you drop in right here and you stay left all the way. Now here's the thing, on corner pocket, the crux move for corner pocket is about 3/4 of the way down. There's a rut that is gonna want to get you in it and stay in it. And if you get in it and stay in it, it'll lead you right into a tree. A lot of people have crashed on it. So what you wanna do is you wanna get in the rut just a little bit at the beginning and then pressure out of the rut by letting off of your front brake and steering out of the rut, and then getting out of the rut and riding a bit of a spine to straighten up, and then you got it done the whole rest of the way. I would definitely advise walking all these. Unfortunately, I can't walk down and point out every feature. That's just gonna take too long, and I need to get my workout in. But definitely see if you can walk down each of these trails and spot what little tips I'm gonna give you from the top on each of them. Just went down and we went down the trail named Corner Pocket. And as we're continuing to go down Corner Pocket, which will be staying to the left, you're gonna see a couple other trails that will be on your right. And I'm just gonna go ahead and talk about these while I'm here. One is Side Pocket. And Side Pocket, I would still put it in the easier grouping of the 3 groupings. And the trick about Side Pocket is if you want to control your speed, you need to brake really hard where it's steep right here. And it's counterintuitive. A lot of times people think the steeper it is, the less I want to brake. But if I don't brake hard on this steep section, I'm going to be going so fast when it's not quite as steep that I may get out of control depending on my skill set. So when I come in here, I brake super, super hard on this steep stuff, and that puts me within reasonable speed of the rest of the trail. All right, there are 2 different ways you can enter it. You can enter it super wide around this tree, which is the way I started. That way it lines it up straight and it doesn't seem quite as scary. That's the way I started doing this until I got used to it. And then the way I do it now, and that is I take the inside line on the right side of the tree here. So easiest way on the left side of the tree, harder way and more fun way on the right side. While we're here, we're gonna talk about this guy here called Trapdoor. Trapdoor, I would qualify, or I would put it in the hardest section of the trails. All right, and the reason for it is it doesn't look very hard because it doesn't look very steep. But the problem with it, I've only ridden it twice, and both times it was kind of like it was at the top of my skill set. I was like, after I rode it the first time, it wasn't in good shape. And I said, I'll never ride it again. And then my buddy Kurt cleaned it up. He got all of the pine straw and stuff off it. I thought, okay, I need to give it a go. And the second time I had the same experience. And here's the reason why for me and my skill set. I really need to be going slow right here, but you can't quite tell. It's hard to really get on your front brake right here because I'm afraid of what it will do to my front wheel. It may try to make it turn because it's just not the most beautiful entrance. And so I basically stay off the front brake a little too long because I don't want to have a wreck by it you know, twisting and turning on me and throwing me over the bars. I wait to get on the front brake hard until this next level or this next flatter section. And the problem with that is by then I'm going way too fast. And so the rest of the time all the way down, I'm kind of like just trying to keep things under control. So the entry is what makes this one steep. If this were all flat and you can get really hard on the front brake, I don't think it would be a problem. And you may be able to. I'm just afraid to try it because there's only one way to find out. All right, let's go to the next one to the right off of this one. The next one off to the right of Corner Pocket, as you can see it down here, it's called Side Door. And I would put it in the easier bunch, although it probably probably spooks me more than any of the other ones that's in the easy bunch because of the setup. You have to set up super wide here, in my opinion. And what I do is I go right over this root right here, this big root. And the problem is, the challenge is, and then it's just a straight down chute that's pretty steep. So once you're in it, and it's not a problem. It's got good traction. There are no issues at all. The trees are wide apart down there. That's why I would put it on the easier of the groupings. But the danger that you got to be careful, in my opinion, on this is if you kind of get awkward here and kind of get knocked offline and like put a foot down at the last second and your body position gets off and your front wheel turns one way or the other, you could end up having a really bad crash. So it's easy as long as this entry part here is taken with confidence and you don't get weeble wobbly coming into it. So that's side door. And then the last one is the one we started off talking about, which is the corner pocket. All right, so this is the one where I said you can't quite see it. It's on the very next section that you allow your front wheel to get into the rut, and then you let off your front brake, steer out of the rut, and then the rest of it is pretty straightforward for Ground Control 1, a Ground Control 1 Master. All right, check out next one we're gonna go down is Meet Pogo. There are a few trails off of Meet Pogo. I'll talk about those as I get down there. But just to orient you, corner pocket is right here. It's one of the easiest ones that you can ride. And then I talked about three other trails off to the right of it. And now we're gonna move to Meet Pogo. And I think there are 2 trails off to the left of those. Off of it. So just to orient you, that's where we are, in the sign for the front range is right here, and we're just going to move from left to right as though we were reading English. Yeah, so we'll go on down and look at Meet Pogo and talk about it. Meet Pogo. And as you see, you just get right here in the ravine, right to the left of that little sapling that's been cut, and you just try to go as slow as possible. When you start skidding, you have to let off the brakes and then look for the next place that you can brake with good terrain awareness and good traction, and then you brake there. So what makes this one tricky is there are rollers in it, and the rollers make it difficult for your timing of braking. If you brake at the wrong time, it can be disastrous. And one of the ones I told you about, I forget the name of it, where I said that the entrance is really tricky, and I've done it twice, but I'm not braking enough at the top. Well, the thing that makes that so difficult is after the top, that trail has even more rollers. So it's the same concept, but on steroids as this one right here. These rollers make it really difficult to maintain good braking. It's a very difficult skill to acquire. And that's what makes this one challenging, and the other one even more challenging. I just rode Meet Pogo, and actually I think it's a little harder than I remembered. So I would move it to the hardest, one of the hardest ones in the easier grouping of double black trails over here, and over to one of the easier ones in the middle. So depending on how you look at it. But it doesn't look hard at all, but because of those rollers, it makes it difficult. So we're continuing to move over here to our right, and we get on Swamp Donkey. All right, Swamp Donkey gives you an entrance to a trail called Apache. Apache is really interesting because when it was first built, it was super difficult just to get to the steepest part. Now, as the weather has changed things and the time has changed it, it's pretty easy to get to the steepest part. So this would be in the middle section, definitely. It's still super hard. This first part of Apache is pretty straightforward if you have my Ground Control 1 course and you have mastered those techniques or come close to mastering them. The crux move on Apache is when you get about halfway down, you'll see the last steep chute and you'll recognize it. What has happened is that chute has gotten more difficult because more people have ridden it than when we first built it. When we first built it, or when I say we, Kurt first built it, it was really loamy, so it had really good traction. Now there's a rut that's developed right in the middle, and the last time I rode it, which was I guess just a couple days ago, I opted to just enter that last chute to the right of that rut, and the traction's a little bit better, but you don't have as much room for air with the trees at the bottom. So it's one of those things, if you get in the rut, you're going to bounce around a little bit and the traction won't be quite as good as outside of the rut. But if you get outside of the rut, the traction's going to be better, but you're going to be a little closer to the trees. So it's kind of like pick your poison. I think if I had it to do it over again, which I'm going to do this run again at some point, I'm going to do the same thing. Rut, just enter to the right of the rut or in the rut. And both of them have pros and cons depending on what you value most. All right, so that's definitely in the middle grouping of the most difficult. Let's back up here, take a look at where we came in. Swamp Donkey here, and we're gonna go down Swamp Donkey to some more trails off to the left. Let's get it done. So we headed down Swamp Donkey, and immediately there's a place to go to the left. And that trail is going to be, I would say, in the hardest section of trails. It's going to be in the last grouping, the most difficult of the most difficult trails in terms of that grouping. And the reason for it is there are roots in it right at the crux, and there's a corner, and I would never do this one in the rain. This is the first trail that was built. I think Andrew and some of the other guys were riding this before Kurt started opening all these lines up, and it was actually easier back then because the roots weren't exposed. But now the roots are like anaconda size, and it's a handful. It's a handful. Like I said, I wouldn't do it in the wet. Me personally, I don't feel like I have that skill set for it. Even in the dry, I'm not super wild about it because it's right at the top of my skill set. I've done it, I've never crashed on it, but I always feel like I'm pushing my skill set when I do it. So just know that if you do go left here where it says more trails, you're gonna get into a handful, in my opinion. More trails over here to the right. Let's roll on down and check them out. All right, we rolled down the trail a little bit, and we run into this sign called Mule Hammer. So basically, you got two trails off of this, off to the left here, Mule Hammer. And one of them is definitely in the easiest grouping. So I would venture to say it may actually be the easiest one of these over here. Yeah, I think it probably is. So this would be a good one to start off with. So basically you're gonna go over to Mule to the left. Hammer is definitely not one of the easiest ones. I would say it's grouped into one of the hardest ones, either in the middle grouping or the last grouping, depending on your skill set. But let's talk about Mule first. Mule's just straightforward. You just get right in there, right in the slot, and just try to see how slow you can go. The key to these chutes is to learn how to ride them is to see how slow you can go on them, all right? You build that skill set, and then you could take that with you for the more difficult ones where you end up starting off slow and then you're going so fast you wish you could slow down, but you can't, all right? So this is a good one to practice on Mule. Hammer, the trick on Hammer, this entrance is a little janky right here because you have to let off your front brake a little bit over that rough stuff there. But then you got to get your speed back in control and your body position set up for a really steep roll that you can't quite see. And what I do is I look, there's a pointed rock when you get down there. I just roll to the right of that rock. Now you can roll off of the rock, but just keep in mind, anytime your front wheel leaves the ground, you're not able to brake. So you're gonna pick up speed if you roll off the tip of that rock. And if you have the skill set to deal with it afterwards, that's great. But for a safer experience for me, at almost 60, I go to the right of that tip of that rock, and I'm on my front brake the whole way, and it's pretty darn straightforward. The good thing about Hammer is not many people ride it, so the soil's really good on it still, because it's in with that middle middle grouping. Depending on how you look at it, it could be in the last grouping of the most difficult, and depending on the day. The next trail we run into off to the left is Disco Chicken. Disco Chicken is a lot like Hammer. Very, very similar. The entrance to it is a lot easier, but you're gonna get to a super steep part, and there's another pointed rock, and I just do the same thing on it. I just roll to the right of that pointed rock, and it's not quite as steep as Hammer, but the problem is there's a tree that's closer to your right handlebar grip, so you have to be in more control, even though it's not as steep. So they're very similar. I would put that in the middle grouping, or one of the easier ones of the last most difficult group. So let's roll on down here, come back out to the trail, the access trail, and we're gonna come down to Pancho, which will be the next trail on the left. And Pancho is, I would put it in the easier group, although it's probably one of the hardest of the easier group because you have corners in here. So you can see that very first corner to the left. You just go as slow as you can. You're gonna have to let off your front brake just for a second to lean the bike and make the corner. If you just keep your front brake on, you're not gonna make the corner because it doesn't want to corner with that front brake on. And then what you'll do is there'll be, after that left-hand corner, there's gonna be a right roller step down into another roller. You wanna step up, you wanna set up as far as you can to the left on that to set you up to make the corners. If you try to do a Frenchy line on the inside right, you're probably not gonna make the corners. So that's Pancho, one of the easier ones in the grouping, but probably one of the harder of the easier grouping. So now we're gonna roll back down here, and we're gonna finish up this video. Thunder Goose. Thunder Goose used to be one of the easier ones. It was probably the second trail to be built over here. It changes. Right now, it's running pretty good because Kurt just cleaned it out, but there are other times it's been super, super spicy. So the key on this is just stay right. You'll see the line, try to stay out of the gully to the left. But as the weather comes in and changes the trail, sometimes that right line has gotten so difficult, I was safer in the gully. So you're just gonna have to have a good eye for terrain awareness. And then the last one is Meet Torpedo, and it's definitely in the last section, the last grouping of the most difficult trails. It's the one you're gonna see from the parking lot when you drive in to your left. It's the most ominous looking one, and we did it just the other day because Kurt cleaned it up, and it was really a lot of fun. It gave me a big adrenaline dump, but I didn't feel sketched out at all. The time before that I'd ridden, I actually crashed on it, the only time I've ever crashed on it, because it was so loose at the bottom. And I grabbed the front brake a little bit in the corner. There's a right-hand corner that's really difficult to make because you're coming off of a really steep roller. So yeah, definitely check this one out. Don't just ride it blind. Go check it out, check your line out and everything. And again, I brake really hard on the steepest part of it. It's kind of counterintuitive. And if I brake really hard on the steepest part, that sets me up to where I'm not coming into the corner quite as hot, so I can get away with just using my rear brake in the corner as I should. Hey, hit me up with any questions. I hope this is helpful. Our friend of the park, Carrie with the camera, she said that there's steep giving coming up. Steeps giving, that's what she said. And so I did this video for her and others who are gonna wanna come out here and hit some of these steeps. Perfect time of the year to do it. Also wanna talk about my bike here. I run two different bikes, two different brands that have both been good to me, Santa Cruz and Transition. This is a Santa Cruz Bullet. I've got it really slacked out. I've got it set up 180 in the front, 170 in the rear. Cahaba Cycles and Santa Cruz have been really good to me in my business, and I would say equally so is Transition. I'm not on it today. It's getting some work done on it. Just a spoke broke, no big deal, but it's the Transition regulator. And the park, I bought that bike through the park. So if you're interested in buying a bike and supporting your local bike park, there's no other place that you can ride steeps around Alabama like this. No other place. Thanks so much for taking the time to watch this. I got to get back to riding.